That's all right. We're good.
What time does the 7 o'clock meeting start?
7 o'clock.
7 o'clock. We started early this week because last week we could not start on time, which in all the years we've done this, we've never managed to not start on time. That was devastating to some of us. Anyway, welcome to Position of Neutrality. We open every session of Position of Neutrality with a prayer, and Wayne is here tonight to help us with that.
Yeah.
I forgot that was my job. Heavenly Father, we just thank you for your presence. We thank you for the life that you've given us. We thank you for your blessings. We thank you for the opportunity to serve you and to just run out into the world and proclaim your name. We ask for power to do so. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen.
Thank you, Wayne. To those of you who started joining us perhaps in the last 8 or 9 months, or any time up until now in the last 8 or 9 months, we now do this session from my home until we find another venue. So that's why the camera angles and the lighting and all of those things are a little odd to those of you. I get those comments from people around the country that, we look like we shot it in a basement. Well, not really, but in a living room, we did. And if you're ever in town, come see us. We have a meal beforehand. We do the meeting, and it's a big family of people just trying to grow in God. That's what we do. So what we do at PON, Position of Neutrality, is we take a look at the suggested instruction for a step or so a week directly out of this book, and we use this book in 12-step recovery. Why?
Because it works.
Yeah, the process described by the authors of this book has been proven to work for addicts of the hopeless variety, addicts to alcohol and other substances, and in fact, other behavioral disorders. So whatever behavioral or emotional, mental disorder you may be experiencing, we have a solution for you that will be revealed to you and through you as a result of this suggested manner of living. And all we do is read the testimony of the authors, the first 100, and then I will attempt to show you how I find my experience in it and encourage you to have your experience with it. And if we both do our job, we share a spiritual experience every time we get together. How many of you agree that that's what we do? So I got a room full here. They're all raising their hands. The anonymous nature of our fellowships, you have to take my word for that. Sometimes they yell, but they just ate. So they're just not, who knows what's up. When we speak of a spiritual experience in 12-step recovery, we're talking about a sensory experience. This isn't something it's not an act of faith to have the experience. It's actually a signature of spirit to awaken you to the spirit within you. And so it's tangible and it's sensory. And the beauty of that is when that happens for you, I'll know. And I'll call it to your attention, wherever you are, whether you're Stephan in Philadelphia or whether you're Norman, Oklahoma, and Amanda and Jesse, or all the folks in Canada. Who?
Chris.
Oh, Chris in Texas. Chris, we haven't yelled at you in a while. Chris is one of our fellow alumni from the finer Texas institutions. And so anyway, tonight we're going to take a look at the instructions for step 12. And for those of you who are students of that other book, think about the book of Acts. Because by the time you're in step 12, you're walking out the Acts of the Apostles. Make sense? Okay. Now I'm going to speak to you in Alcoholics Anonymous for an hour. Those of you who are thoroughly wigged out, don't trip. Okay. So chapter 7, working with others. Practical experience shows that nothing will so much ensure immunity from drinking as intensive work with other alcoholics. It works when other activities fail. So let's dissect that. There's some promises there. There's some conditions there. Anyone catch promise or condition?
Other activities will fail.
Yep. There's a certainty to that. It works when other activities fail, not if. In the unfortunate event that it doesn't say that. It says it works. What is it that it is?
Intensive work with other alcoholics.
So what was the main purpose of this book? To show others precisely how we recovered. So what does intensive work look like? Me sitting down with a book showing them how I find, right? That's what we do. It isn't going to meetings. Going to meetings is great. Go to 90 and 90 and do the steps. But going to 90 and 90 will fail. This doesn't. Does it make sense? So then it says this is our 12th suggestion, which means the 12th suggestion follows. It's not the selfish reason why I do this. Because remember, we're working towards selflessness. So it's going to be a selfless reason, but as a human, what I gain is insurance. Nothing so much ensures immunity as intensive work with others. So I do it even though I know self is present. I have an expectation. Anyone else? Okay. So then it says this is our 12th suggestion. Carry this message to other alcoholics. How does one carry a message? Yeah, there's no wrong answer, but it probably doesn't require talking all the time, does it?
No, it requires listening half the time.
Or more, right? It's often people sitting back knowing the experience of me and then having a different experience of me and needing an explanation. And that's not consciously what happens. It's just what people start to see, that there's something different about the likes of me. So you can help when no one else can. You can secure their confidence when others fail. Remember, they're very ill. Who knows that besides people like us who have been in that state of delusion? Nobody. There's all kinds of trained people cannot get there. And that's not about a license to be mean. It's about a license to be frank. Right? Because I owe you nothing less. If you encounter me and want to know what I got going on, I owe you nothing less than the truth. Not my truth, not your truth, the truth. Yeah? So it says, remember, they're very ill. Life will take on new meaning. How many of you have needed life to take on new meaning? How many of y'all have been sober a while? Periodically, life's going to have to start meaning something. Okay. It's a manner of living. That's why we want you to understand the goal of 12-step recovery was never to get sober and not pick up no matter what. Nowhere in this book will you hear that. What the goal of this was to awaken spiritually and then carry the message of how this manner of living awakened that spirit in you for their sake. Does that make sense? So to watch people recover, to see them help others, to watch loneliness vanish, to see a fellowship grow up about you, to have a host of friends, this is an experience you must not miss. Notice how they described all those sights and then described it as an experience. Do you know why they did that? How many of you have a new way of seeing today? A new way of hearing today? How many of you authenticate what people say by the way it makes you feel when they say it? See, I know that they've recovered oftentimes before they've recovered because I've been told that in the spirit, and I get to speak that to them. Any of you ever contemplate how you suddenly got sober and why that day? Tell me all the things you did to prepare for that launch. The likelihood is we can't, right? So he said, we know you'll not want to miss it. Frequent contact with the newcomers and with each other is the bright spot of our lives. Then it says, perhaps you're not acquainted with any drinkers who want to recover. Do you think that's true?
Yeah, the guy that I took the detox today.
Well, and Sean says that, but the truth is we don't even know that he doesn't desperately want to recover. If he's anything like me, I desperately wanted to recover, even though I had no outward action manifested to show it. So you can easily find some by asking a few doctors, ministers, priests, or hospitals. They'll be only too glad to assist you. Don't start out as an evangelist or reformer. What are they warning us about?
Hallelujah. Preaching. Yeah. Demon run. Doesn't work.
Yeah, we're probably not going to scare them into anything, and they're probably not going to be impressed with my opinion about their condition, right? Because they probably had more learned people than me share an opinion about their condition if they're anything like me. I don't know how many doctors told me that I was dying. Yeah, I know. Tell me when. Right? That'd be an interesting piece of information to know. Unfortunately, a lot of prejudice exists. You'll be handicapped if you arouse it. Handicapped in what? See, they're always looking, just like we were looking, for an attitude of intolerance for people who are not doing something. Are you ever a smoker and then you weren't a smoker?
Yeah.
Didn't you just hate you? Because if you have it removed, you're not bitchy. But if you really are trying to quit and you're doing the lozenges, anyone gets near you, oh, that stinks. Well, dude, that smelled like you for the last 8.5 years. None of us likes an attitude of intolerance. And so they're just talking about it. Our work is about winning friends, not arguments, right? So ministers and doctors are competent, and you can learn much from them if you wish, but it happens that because of your own drinking experience, you can be uniquely useful to other alcoholics. They use interesting words. They didn't say you will be, they said you can be. So I'm assuming they expect me to prep in some way. Maybe take the steps, learn the facts about myself, so I can be a proper witness to what's been done for me, right? So cooperate, never criticize. To be helpful is our only aim. When you discover a prospect for Alcoholics Anonymous, find out all you can about them. How do you do that?
Ask questions and listen.
Yeah, that's it. We're going to have to start a conversation without an assumption, aren't we?
Right.
Any of you ever stumble into an AA meeting just to see what was up, not particularly planning on staying? Me too. Me too. Anyway, approach determines response is what we're trying to say. So if he does not want to stop drinking, don't waste time trying to persuade him. You may spoil a later opportunity. Don't let your fear of what you think you know is going to happen to them drive them away from the one thing that can save them. That's what they're cautioning us about. Because we think we can save them from an experience and we can't, but we can point them to the one who can, but we're going to first have to have a dialogue that's open. So this advice is given for his family also. They should be patient, realizing they're dealing with a sick person. Did it help any of you to find out that you weren't just morally flawed, although you may have had moral failings, but that you really did have a disorder that was not manageable through modern science? Because they tried to manage it for me. They told me I had an Ativan deficiency. There's not enough of that either. So if there's any indication that he wants to stop, have a good talk with the person most interested in him, usually his wife. Get an idea of his behavior, his problems, his background, the seriousness of his condition, and his religious leanings. You need this information to put yourself in his place to see how you would like him to approach you if the tables were turned. I think we don't do that well in modern fellowship. I challenge all of you. Half the original fellowship were atheists or agnostics. The other half were religious people dying in their addiction to alcohol. And so we're supposed to talk to them about their leanings and then speak to their leanings, because that's the only way they're going to hear. So if all we do is talk, this is what I did, who gives a shit what you did? What did the first 100 do, and how do I align my experience to that? did I look at how I would like to be approached if I were them? Because I've had to approach a lot of people that were extremely religious, and they have been approached by people who are extremely AA fellowshipy. And guess what happens? The same thing that happens to people who are extremely AA fellowshipy, and they go talk to someone with religious leanings, and everything seems to be counter to everything they hold true. And who am I to decide who lives and dies because of their beliefs? When this process guarantees, regardless of our beliefs, our experience will change our mind. Right? So I'm gonna jump over to 91, middle of the page, and talk about how we normally meet them. Rather than get into all that, y'all can read the book on your own about families and doctors and all those things. But we usually are going to meet them in meetings, right? So they start out saying, see your man alone if possible.
Yes.
So those of you that are meeting people in fellowship meetings, how do you do that?
Get in the car.
John, for years, has been telling us how he kidnaps people.
Yes.
How about the rest of you?
Before the meeting, after the meeting.
Some of you go before the meeting in fellowship, hang out after the meeting in fellowship. Yeah?
Go get coffee.
Yeah.
Taco Bell. Give me a call.
Make sure you're paying attention to the one who looks isolated, regardless of what's going on and how many of your homies are in the room. A lot of people dying quietly in our rooms while we yuck it up with our friends we went there to see.
Change phone numbers pretty important.
Yep. So then it says, at first engage in general conversation. So what's that look like?
Been here before?
You guys got to speak louder. The mic picks me up. They're talking about, haven't seen you before. Are you new in the area? Did you catch that game last night? Why do we assume when they walk into a room that they're there because of an addiction? I mean, it's a good guess. But if they don't know that's true, I told you last week about my son-in-law sending me a letter calling me crazy. And I told him how offensive that was. And he says, well, I'm sorry, Joe. I thought you knew. See, we assume people have facts and evidence they don't necessarily have. How many of you remember your first recovery meetings and completely lost? And I have no idea what I'm doing here. And what is all this nonsense language I hear you people talking? Because we don't know. Okay. So after a while, turn the talk to some phase of drinking. Tell him enough about your drinking habits, symptoms, and experiences to encourage him to speak of himself. If he wishes to talk, let him do so. You'll thus get a better idea of how you ought to proceed. So, what are your drinking habits, symptoms, experiences? Can you do it without speaking in Alcoholics Anonymous? Can you talk just in simple terms about thinking you were stopping for one and staying there till the place closed? Thinking you were going to get home for the holiday and getting home sometime after spring break. Right? We can describe the phenomenon of craving without talking in clinical language. We can talk about our loss of control and how baffling it was without prejudicing them with language. Does it make sense? So if he's not communicative, give him a sketch of your drinking career up to the time you quit. Can you do that? The steps help with that. But say nothing for the moment of how that was accomplished. Interesting they said that. Why do you think they said that?
Scare them off.
That's true. Yeah. And I don't really know. I can't tell them how. I can tell them who. It wasn't me, right? If he's in a serious mood, dwell on the troubles liquor has caused you, being careful not to moralize or lecture. So I know that I did a lot of things in order to get drugs and alcohol, and I did a lot of things because I was influenced by drugs and alcohol that really were not in my nature to do. And then I did more drugs and drinking to cover up how shame-filled I was because of what I had done. Those are things I know about me. So that's not moralizing or lecturing. That's just leveling the playing field, right? If his mood is light, tell him humorous stories of your escapades. How many of you have some humorous story? So the mistake we make is we need to make sure we're not trying to be funny when they're being somber. Because as somebody who came in tore up, there was nothing funny. And so I'm pretty sure you were laughing at me if you were laughing. Because I was just that deep in me, if that makes sense. So we kind of got to read the spirit and the room, huh? So get him to tell some of his. When he sees you know all about the drinking game, commence to describe yourself as an alcoholic. Tell him how baffled you were and how you finally learned that you were sick. The steps help you with that. As many people as in this room or in this audience around the country, how did you finally learn that you were sick? Some people got all the way to AA and read the doctor's opinion. That's what happened for Denise. Anyone else?
Intervention.
Some people got intervened. There's all kinds of clinical approaches to try and arrest the cycle, and some of them work for some people. They don't. Sean tried to kill himself and then realized that was not a rational thought. That's not uncommon either. We're just talking about how baffled we are and how we finally learn that we're sick. Yeah? Okay. So give them an account of the struggles you made to stop. You know what those are. Did some of you go to more than one rehab? Did some of you go to more secure rehabs? Financed by the state or the federal government or the county, perhaps. Our circles often include people who've been in gated communities. So show them the mental twist which leads to the first drink of a spree. Do you know what that is for you? Will you recognize that lie when somebody says it to you and is asking for help? How many of you, the excuse really didn't matter? The insanity's on. I don't need a reason. Okay, we suggest you do this as we've done it in the chapter on alcoholism. If he's alcoholic, he'll understand you at once. So let's test the theory. The chapter on alcoholism, more about alcoholism, they tell us some stories. They talk about a jaywalker. And they said, substitute your alcoholism for that jaywalker running in front of cars and getting hit and getting progressively more and more hurt and still not stopping. Does that fit? They talk about Jim, the car guy. He didn't drink till he was in his 30s. And then he found out he was fairly good at it. And he was so good at it that he drank away his dealership that he owned. And so he had to go to work for the dealership he once owned. It says on his way to work, he was a little agitated. Any of you ever get a job, something less than what you thought you were capable of? And you were grateful to get it, but didn't take long to be agitated by the fact that you had to go listen to somebody talk about it. Yeah? That's what happened to Jim. When he got there, he had a few words with the boss. Nothing serious. Any of you ever got to work and had a few words with the boss? Nothing serious?
On Tuesday.
So anyway, after these words with the boss, Jim decides that he's going to leave the dealership and go out in the woods where car buyers hang out that don't come to dealerships so he can wrestle him a car buyer and bring him back to the dealership, supposedly. And on his way out to these woods where car buyers hang out, there's a roadside place, and they have a bar, but not to worry, he'd been there many times. So he walked into the bar, and he was pretty sure he could find a buyer for a car in there, so he wouldn't have to go to those silly woods. Any of you following his logic yet? He's agitated, so he's already in the illusion of control. His situation is a situation he's at least played a hand in. He's mad about it. He's barking at other people. Now he's avoiding his responsibility. Now he finds himself in a bar, and he orders a sandwich and a glass of milk, and then the thought comes to him that if he were to order another sandwich and another glass of milk, he could pour a shot of whiskey into the milk, and it would not hurt him on a full stomach. Any of you see the perfect logic there? Yeah, and the experiment worked so well for Jim that he had another. And then it goes on to tell how he had another and another, and at some point he quit doing sandwiches and milk. But he did end up in an asylum. And a lot of people that are not drinkers, who put whiskey in milk? Well, you put whiskey in anything, and if it's got alcohol in it, you'll drink whatever if you carry it. But those of you who are purists and maybe you just did other drugs, did you not ever go down to the trap house just to show the fellows how good you were doing? I am an example of recovery. Anyway, so if you relate to Jim, if you relate to the jaywalker, the other fellow was a business guy. The AAs talked to him. He wasn't that bad yet. Yeah, I understand. I appreciate your full disclosure, but I'll just not pick up no matter what. Thank you very much. And what ends up happening is after some period of time, he walks in and just casually picks up a drink, and then he comes 2-3 days later in a cab. And he ends up back in the hospital, and he encounters the AAs yet again, right? Okay.
And they laugh at him.
Yeah.
Right. Which is what we do.
So then it says that you're to match my inconsistencies, their inconsistencies with some of your own. So if some of you are doing that, now we're there. We're fishing. Now you're on the hook, right? So congratulations, you've caught alcoholism. And then it says, if you're satisfied that he's a real alcoholic, so how would I know if you're a real alcoholic? That's very specific. Page 21, 22, 20, whatever, right? What about the real alcoholic? More or less, seldom mildly intoxicated, always more or less insanely drunk. Because Sean came in and told us today that one of his fellows, when he got him to detox today, was it what, 2.3?
No, 3.33.
Oh, see, and that's really an achievement, to be upright and conscious over 3.
And pulling weeds. Okay, good garden.
So all we're saying is we're insanely drunk, like medically should be in the hospital. And yeah. Anyway, they go through a whole list of things, real Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde, that type of thing. So if we're satisfied, then begin to dwell on the hopeless feature of the malady. No matter the need or desire that you can manifest, if you are this guy like I am this guy, you will not at a point be able to bring to consciousness that suffering, that humiliation of even a few weeks ago, and you'll end up exactly where you are or worse. And not because I know anything about you, but because I know a lot about me. Okay? So it says, show him from your own experience how the queer mental condition surrounding that first drink prevents normal functioning of the willpower. So do you know that from your step experience? Like you had every reason to not drink. You knew it wasn't going to turn out well. And yet somehow, for no reason or for a trivial reason, off you were again. Okay. So don't at this stage refer to this book unless he's seen it and wishes to discuss it, and be careful not to brand him as an alcoholic. They really want us to check ourselves because my opinion of their condition is the least important thing they need to know. Does it make sense? Doesn't matter what I think I know about them. If they don't learn that diagnosis for themselves, they're going to die in it, and it's going to be ugly. And the only reason I was sent to them is not tell them what they should do. I need to tell them what's been done for me and why I was sent to them. Right. So let him draw his own conclusion. If he sticks to the idea that he can still control his drinking, tell him possibly he can if he's not too alcoholic. So you see, we're not throwing them under the bus. We're just setting the hook. No one wants to be told they're not addict enough. If you don't believe me, when you're working with someone, tell them, oh, no, No, you need to go out and try some more controlled using. Just fire that pipe up, take a hit, just take a half a hit, blow it out quick, and then throw it away. Just ignore it. Anyway, but insist that if he's severely afflicted, there may be little chance he can recover by himself. Continue to speak of alcoholism as an illness, a fatal malady. How many of you understand the gravity of your condition now that you're a little bit back from the edge? Because when we're in it full blown, we really don't see the gravity of it, do we? We don't believe it when we see it in front of us. So talk about the conditions of body and mind which accompany it. So what are the conditions of body and mind? Yeah, there's a physical craving that comes on me when I ingest any at all that's beyond my control. But I got a mind that gives me that same sense of craving, maybe more so. Anyone else know what I'm talking about? How many of you have been sober for more than 7 months? Almost everyone in the room. How many of you did opiate drugs at some point? How many of you sitting here now sober that long can still breathe in how it feels to take those opiate drugs? So it's every bit as powerful as ingesting it. I can bring that on right now. Where's my cocaine addicts? How many of you can just, are you afraid you're going to have to run to the bathroom after you I'm just checking. Get his attention, keep his attention focused mainly on your personal experience. Explain that many are doomed who never realize their predicament. I'm a good witness to that because I've seen many go out for one last hurrah and not survive it. We took a guy that's a friend of ours for years to a detox and residential the other day, and there was a whole wall full of pictures. And I'm not making this up. It was, 14 by 20 pictures. And then he said, "Who are those, graduates?" And I says, "No, those are the ones that blew out of treatment and died a week after." It's like, was a kick in the gut, huh? What a happy place. Anyway, I won't name the place, but it's a trip. Doctors are rightly loath to tell alcoholic patients the whole story unless it'll serve some good purpose. But you may talk to them about the hopelessness of alcoholism because you offer a solution. Does that sound like a good news thing, or does that sound like an obligation? Yeah, because I'm going to have to get real. I can talk to them about the hopelessness of the condition because I know just how hopeless it is. And I know why I was sent to them. I'm not here to convince you you're hopeless. I'm here to convince you I was hopeless. And that I know enough about who you are because of who I've been, that I know I wouldn't be standing in front of you if you didn't desperately need to meet the solution in me. Does that make sense? Yep. So you'll soon have your friend admitting he has many, if not all, the traits of an alcoholic. If his own doctor is willing to tell him that he's an alcoholic, so much the better. Even though your protege may not have entirely admitted his condition, he's become very curious to know how you got well. Then it says, let him ask you that question if he will. And then they get really specific in italics. They want you, this is why you need to be properly armed with the facts about yourself. Tell him exactly what happened to you. So better by demonstration than some lesson. I drank every day, no matter what. I also had a very serious, as if there were a non-serious, opiate addiction. Serious enough to regularly commit felonies in pursuit of these things. And I wasn't that guy, but that's who I became. And I started ending up in hospitals on the regular. And I ended up in detoxes on the regular. And they would have to chain me down. One time I was in a detox, came to in a hospital, 7 days in a coma, chained to the bed. And as soon as they unchained me and tried to rehab me, because when you go in a coma for that long, they have to teach you how to eat, how to walk, all that. As soon as they got me on my feet and let me out to go smoke, I ran across the parking lot and got a beer at a convenience market with my ass hanging out of my hospital gown. And I didn't do that to show you that I was the John Wayne of drinkers. I did that because I was completely nuts, completely emotionally and mentally shot. That's who presented to Alcoholics Anonymous. And a fellow who knew this solution came into yet another detox I was in, and he walked in there and he spoke out of this book like I'm speaking to you now, and he made sense of it in ways I'd never heard made sense. And I knew that I knew that I knew that if that man would tell me how he knew what he knew, that I would never be the same. So I asked him, hey, when I get out of here, will you help me? And I expected him to say, yeah, give me any number of excuses because I didn't look pretty. I didn't smell pretty. I wasn't pretty. And he said, yeah, it'd be my honor to do so. And he started to walk out. He came in with some girl. And about halfway across, it was a lockdown unit. By the time he got about halfway across the room, he spun around and he goes, on second thought, you don't look very good. You better call me before you get out. So I didn't take in a suggestion in years, folks. Nobody could tell me nothing. But I was scared to death not to listen to what this guy said. He spoke with such authority. And I called him when they told me they were going to release me. And he says, I can't get there tonight. Can you get yourself safe until morning? And I was going to my parents yet one more time. I don't know why they let me, but they did. And so I was pretty sure I could get myself safe for the night. When I got up in the morning, I was edgy and waiting for him, and I went in to clean up, and there was a bottle of cologne in the medicine cabinet, and I seriously considered drinking that cologne. It was an atomizer top, and I knew that I could not hide the bottle once I broke the atomizer top off. It's the only reason I didn't drink the cologne before he came. He came and he called to my attention this manner of living and why he was there. And he called to my attention the power found deep down inside every human being when they're honest enough and willing enough to make the effort to get all the crap out of the way. And he called to my attention the experience of just as sick as I was, I don't know, just awakening, just knew that I knew that something was forever different. That same day, I went through the inventory with him. I finished my 5th step with him. I didn't tell him the whole truth. He knew. He told me I should go ahead and tell him what I was holding back. I did. And we both got lit in the spirit. Lit up. And then he said, okay, I'm going to go to lunch with my girlfriend. Call me in 1 hour. I was so scared that I was going to miss by even a minute. I sat and stared at a clock so that I could be on the phone with him in an hour. And he came back to me in 1 hour. And we went through the 6th and 7th step. We talked about what was indicated from there. And he said, how do you feel? And I said, I don't feel safe. And he said, if you don't feel safe, you are not safe. What are you willing to do now? And I said, I'm willing to do anything. And he says, so let's look at these amends. So then he said, who can we talk to today? And I had an ex-wife in the town that I could talk to today. I called my brother on the phone. I made some amends to my parents that day. I went and saw my wife. She allowed us out, even though I had destroyed the home and caused financial wreckage for the kids and lost a business and all those things. She allowed us how, thank God, I've been praying for this for years. That's exactly what happened for me. It had nothing to do with me. I'd have never agreed to go through that experience if he'd have told me before the experience I was going to have. Because I had certain ideas about what spiritual experiences were. Does that make sense? Okay. So then it says, stress the spiritual feature freely. If the man be agnostic or atheist, make it emphatic that he does not have to agree with your conception of God. Why not? Because God is not a conception. And that's the, God is power, right? So what we need to get people equating that term that prejudices some with power. That's why we do what we do here. When I say God, they say power. Yeah. He can choose any conception he likes, provided it makes sense to him. Notice the condition. Don't fall into this trap. Oh, it's a group of drunks. It's a doorknob. It's a life. Bullshit. Precise instructions. It's found within you. It's been obscured by calamity, pomp, worship of other things. But it's there. Freedom from guilt, shame, and remorse. Power to philosophically comfort you. It's found within you. And the caveat is you're going to go tell others. Remember I told you this was the book of Acts? You want to be a healer? There you are. All right, so the main thing is that he be willing to believe in a power greater than himself and that he live by spiritual principles. The spirituals are contained in the steps. You'll learn them as you go. We went over them last week, right? Watch, ask, discuss, turn. Love and tolerance of others is our code. All right, when dealing with such a person, you'd better use everyday language to describe spiritual principles. So what's that look like? I hear it all the time. I just got a God shot. But talk to people the way they talk, right? If you're freaked out by King James language, don't use it.
How would I understand you?
Well, those of you that have been watching me do this for a while, I gave you some simple prayers years ago. Some of my prayers are like, Papa, can you help a motherfucker out? Because that's how I got here, tore the fuck up. There is no use in arousing any prejudice he may have against certain theological terms and conceptions about which he may already be confused. Don't raise such issues no matter what your own convictions are. I'm going to attempt to educate you on my experience, and you may be offended by my experience, but understand I'm not telling you yours. I'm simply sharing mine. And I've done a deep dive in lots of spiritual teachings since the days I first rolled in here. And I'm unapologetic about that. But I'm still not telling you anything. I'm just sharing my experience, and I challenge anyone to be a better, expert on my experience than me. So your prospect may belong to a religious denomination, and his religious education and training may be far superior to yours. In that case, he's going to wonder how you can add anything to what he already knows. But he'll be curious to learn why his own convictions have not worked and why yours seem to work so well. Many people that are in the church will meet those people that can cite scripture and still can't do what it says. And there's a lot of people in our AA rooms that can quote our book and don't do what it says. And I would suggest if you're not a doer, then you ought to keep quiet. Because if you're doing it, that'll speak loud for you. Make sense? You don't have to. You want to know who's getting free in Alcoholics Anonymous? Look at the ones that are out taking people through the steps in the courtyard of a dumpy halfway house. Look at the ones in the side room at your fellowship hall. Not the ones in the room hooking up and yucking with the homies. The ones that are sitting there with the tore up dude. They're the ones that are getting the freedom. All right, so he may be an example of the truth that faith alone is insufficient. Faith without works is dead. All right, to be vital, faith must be accompanied by self-sacrifice and unselfish constructive action. Remember, there was a whole chapter on into action because of my mental disorder, cannot think my way into better acting. I have to act my way into better thinking. So I'm going to have to consciously act unselfishly until it comes over me naturally. My program gets reprogrammed. My brain gets reprogrammed. Does it make sense? Yeah. And I'm going to have to pray power to do that because it's against my nature to be kinder than I feel like being. Okay, I'm going to jump from there because I'm going to run out of time to page 97. They talked about people needing money, people needing housing, all these things. Not going to get into all that, but you'll run into that enough. If you go to enough recovery meetings, you'll see people that are in genuine need, and you'll see people that know there's people there that feel like that's what they got to do is give people things to do their 12-step work. But the point is, I don't want to read all that right now. I just want to talk about their admonition. So never avoid these responsibilities. So if you are stopped by somebody, remember they are coming to him, not you. Act accordingly. Right? Never be too busy, even when you are too busy to do your job, as long as you're still in your decision. Does it make sense?
Yep.
So it says, be sure you're doing the right thing if you assume them. Helping others is the foundation stone of your recovery. So how important is it that I at least make the effort to help you when you ask?
Absolutely essential. The foundation.
Yeah, I don't want to be standing on quicksand. I did enough of that, right? So a kindly act once in a while isn't enough. You have to act the Good Samaritan every day if need be. That's a tall order, isn't it?
Yep.
Every day. Good Samaritan's not the one that gave him thoughts and prayer. Good Samaritan picked him up, bandaged him up, put him on his own animal, took him to the inn, paid the tab, said, I'll be back in a week in case there's something else I need to settle up. He took responsibility for his injured brother, and he was a Samaritan. He wasn't supposed to do that. Make sense? So it may mean the loss of many nights' sleep, great interference with your pleasures, interruptions to your business. Do you ever hear your own excuses when somebody calls and you know? Any of you ever had that happen? Oh, I was just gonna. How many of you have blown them off and gone and done that and then had a shitty time doing whatever it was you're doing? And how many of you have answered the call cussing all the way and then thanking God all the way home for letting you participate? So that we learn that way, right? Okay, so it may mean sharing your money in your home, counseling frantic wives and relatives, innumerable trips to police courts, sanitariums, hospitals, jails, and asylums. How many of you were in jails and asylums and had people met to come see you? Do you remember their names? No. Oh, good. Hold on to that, because seriously, for everyone in the room, all of us had that happen, and those people are absolutely nameless to us, but they paid a debt they couldn't pay back to the one who paid the debt I couldn't pay, right? Because that's our job. He paid a debt that we couldn't pay for something he didn't know. And now my unending debt is to do the same for all those nameless people. So your telephone may jangle at any time of the night, day or night. Your wife may sometimes say she's neglected.
Don't have one of those anymore.
Because you neglected her. A drunk may smash the furniture in your home or burn a mattress. You may have to fight with him if he's violent. Sometimes you'll have to call a doctor and administer sedatives under his direction. A lot of people don't think we do that anymore, but that's only because you've never had to take someone to public detox. Because we know what it takes to get into public detox, those of us who do it. And so we'll pour a pint down their neck just so they'll pass the test. Otherwise, they ain't going to get one of those shitty sandwiches and a cotton. You know what I mean? Any of you get to do that? Cheese is better than peanut butter, too. Another time, you may have to send for the police or an ambulance. Occasionally, you'll have to meet such conditions. Now, I was told those were the 12-step promises.
Yes.
But what I have since come to know is what those really are the job description for you once you've made your decision. So if anyone ever wants to, well, what does sponsorship entail? Well, let's go to page 97 and I'll read it to you. It make sense?
Yeah.
So we seldom allow an alcoholic to live in our homes for a long time. It's not good for him, and it sometimes creates serious complications for a family. Though an alcoholic does not respond, there's no reason why you should neglect his family. You should continue to be friendly to them. The family should be offered your way of life. Guys, we have things other than a meeting list. We have, we have prayer, we have meditation, we have a manner of living that works that we could help them understand better if we sit down and show up for them, and right? Because they may need to know my story so that they know their loved one is not beyond the reach of the one who sent me to them. Does it make sense? So I'm going to jump from there because we're going to run out of time to the bottom of 98, well, lower part of the middle. It says, burn the idea into the consciousness of every man that he can get well regardless of anyone. How do I know that? Well, it happened for me. And it's happened for many I've encountered. But what's more important to me is, do you know how to burn an idea into someone's consciousness? If you're not awakened in the spirit, you lack the power to do so. Because when they're talking about burning some idea into consciousness, they're talking about speaking to them with spiritual authority. And if you're not in the spirit, you cannot transmit what you don't have. Does it make sense? That doesn't mean you can't have it, but if you're not awake to it, you're just not awake to it. So the only condition that he trusts in God and clean house, which the first step of action is going to be that house cleaning. And then that's simply lining up what the real house cleaning is, the making of amends and the life and service to others. Yeah? All right. So I'm going to jump from there to, I know what we got to look at. Let's look at page 100. This one always freaks people out if they haven't paid attention. Both you and the new man must walk day by day in the path of spiritual progress. These guys are speaking from a deep spiritual perspective, by this having had a spiritual awakening. So they're not talking about man in the flesh. They're talking about you and the new man within you. Right? All the instructions up to this point is me awakening to that new guy within me and following that direction. Does it make sense? So they're telling you, because they've given you all the instructions through prayer and meditation, constant inventory, that I'm going to start seeing a changed nature. Yes? Yeah. And I'm going to start seeing access to power I previously did not possess. Yes? Yeah. So if you persist, remarkable things will happen. See how I told you this was a modern book of Acts? Signs and wonders follow us. If you take the stirrings that you're given and you reach out and use the healing power that's given you for those people, they will get well in spite of medical opinions. There's several people in this room, I'll guarantee you, here, me among them. When we look back, we realize the things that came to us when we put ourselves in God's hands were better than anything we could have planned. How many of you have replayed your life and think back to some of the things you were going to do that was important to you, and then look at what you received instead and wonder where the importance went to some of those things? Interesting, isn't it? So it says, follow the dictates of a higher power, and you'll presently live in a new and wonderful world, no matter what your present circumstances. I came in completely destitute, stumbled into a homeless shelter, didn't get a hell of a lot better off for a long time thereafter, but I didn't drink. I served, and I was instantly different, though my circumstances didn't change for years, just so you understand. So if some people are trying to tell you that evidence of the promises is new cars and new houses, nonsense. Evidence of the promises are a new creation standing before you. And it's so obvious when it happens. People that knew me and then knew me didn't know me. So I want to jump from there to, we're not going to have that much more time. So 102, what our job is. Your job now is to be at the place where you may be of maximum helpfulness to others. So guys, don't believe the things that you've heard over the years from people who haven't done what's required, that you can't go places, you can't do things. If you're not spiritually fit, you shouldn't be doing any of it. But if you are spiritually fit and you're led to go, here's what it says. Never hesitate to go anywhere if you can be helpful. You should not hesitate to visit the most sordid spot on earth on such an errand.
Gas
It is quite sordid, but there's numerous people in this room tonight who got awakened on a prison yard, fairly sordid places. There's a lot of people that have walked into trap houses where weapons were there and no one was in their right mind because someone made a phone call and I knew it was time to go get them out. Right? And I knew the God who sent me in was going to bring me out. Does that make sense? So it says, keep on the firing line of life with these motives, and God will keep you unharmed. What we're telling you is walk it out. The power of healing, although through you, is not of you, but to prove that to yourself, take it out for a walk, because that's what step 12 is all about. Wake up and serve. Hands and feet of God. If you don't believe in God, you will when you've been walking a minute, right? So next week we're in 1. See you then. We'll see.